bumping away, streaming for all to see. El Cachorro, El Cachorro. There's a dawn superheroes day today for you and me. El Cachorro, El Cachorro.
What's up, El Cachorro Army? Here we are again. It's time for some more reviews, a new review episode, and this time we're going da-da-da-da-da-da-da. It's X-Men 97, debuted with 2 episodes. This show is fire, amazing. So much they did. So many member berries of bringing the show back to life. So many amazing storylines that we're going to talk about. Look, I got notes. This is the first time I've ever scripted a video. Usually I just go off the cuff of my head here. But I actually had to take notes on this. So we got a lot of cool moments. A lot of great storyline intros that they're starting here. So many famous comic book storylines that were brought up in these episodes. So absolutely love the show. Absolutely love them. Freaking fanboyed out altogether. They kept the intro the same. They did some touch ups to it. They obviously did the new animation style with a lot of the old intro. Touched up the music a little bit. Added a few little scenes. Intro is fire. It's amazing. It's just as good as it reminds you of the great classic intro that they've had on the show. They're doing their best in the animation to kind of make it look like the old animation, so people might complain about. The old one did not have great animation, let's be honest. And I think they're trying to mimic the style a little bit, but it's hard to make it look exactly like that with that. So some people, it can be a little wonky at place. Most of the characters I think look really good. Magneto's probably the only there's a character I think that looks kind of strange if you look at it when you're showing him like head on. He looks kind of funky. But everyone else I thought looked, fairly really well. Takes some of the voices. Obviously, they have some returning people that sound great. Magneto sounds great. Storm sounds great. I'm pretty sure Cyclops is a new actor, but he actually sounds really good. Reminds you just of Cyclops. The Wolverine's the same actor. Sometimes his voice does sound a little different because he is a lot older. Then I'm pretty sure. I think we have all new voices. Obviously, the big Jean and Rogue are probably the biggest. Maybe Jubilee too. Or like the biggest ones that are different, sound all different than they used to. I don't think they sound bad. They do sound different, and it takes a little getting used to them. Especially Rogue. Rogue sounds completely. The new actress sounds completely different, but I think she's doing a good job. She does have that southern accent, the southern sounding voice, and she's done a great job of capturing Rogue. It's just a lot different than the old cartoon. But I was like, I don't think that's a terrible thing. I was like, it's just obviously some people couldn't reprise their role, so you got to accept that. Let's get into this. So the first one is To Me, My X-Men. And they give you a kind of an overview so I don't know if they're trying. I need to go back and watch how the old one is, because I know Xavier was dying. Lilandra came and took him away to the Sheer Empire, so he's not technically dead. But episode talks about Xavier is dead at the hands of Henry Gyrick, supposedly assassinated him. So I don't know if they just kept up the secret that he went away in the Sheer, or if they are actually playing that he died. So it's hard to say really which way they're going with it. Then we see we're starting right off with the Friends of Humanity, the famous and the intolerant mutant hating group that had some storylines in the previous ones. And we also get the quick intro to Roberto da Costa, who they have captured and are using the Sentinel tech, the mutant inhibitor generation collars on him. And he doesn't sound like I would expect him to sound. He sounds. He is always in the comics. He is kind of more stuck up, but he's also kind of arrogant and hot-headed and ego-minded. This one's kind of more laid back. He doesn't want to talk. He's trying not to use his powers. He's bragging about his how I got money. I'll buy my way out of it. Let me go. But they're selling him to a buyer who they said wants to use him as target practice. Could be the Sentinels. Could be, obviously we know Sinister's supposed to play some as the bad guy in the series, in the season. So maybe he's Sinister's doing his wants him. I don't know. We don't. So there's the mystery buyer for mutants. He's the costume. I don't know if I really liked his kid. He might be the character I kind of didn't like the most because I don't know. I kind of expected him to be played differently, come off a little different from that. But whatever. We get some storms starts raining and thundering and lightning, and we get Storm's entrance, and she's epic entrance for Storm. She comes in with one of her speeches, and it's like super good. Storm like, like we're not scared of you, witch. Like then you are fools. So great entrance for Storm. So she starts taking him out, and then Bishop comes sliding in. So we automatically have Bishop right off the get-go. I don't know. I have to maybe go watch that last season again and see was he on the team at the end of that? So I have to. So I know they came out that lost season, kind of last final season kind of thing. So I need to check this. Bishop's on the team. Just comes sliding in, so they're fighting them all and stuff like that. They take out an explosion and knocks him out. And then there's a big explosion of the wall shooting in. And here comes Cyclops with a power pose. He comes in with power pose and walking in, and he's like, Robert and Sunspot's like, are you a good or a bad one? The name's Cyclops. Definitely good. And he just goes to this awesome thing, and Cyclops' uses of his optic blast are amazing. He's using his optic blast to kind of like, I don't want to say teleport around, but kind of for movement as well. It's like grabs the guy, shoots the ground, shoot him backwards, starts shooting guys, and keeps using the ground. Using his optic blast to like help him like maneuver, as well as doing like pinpoint shots, like boom, bing, ting, 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 ting. It was like, that's my boy, that's my boy. He's a badass. So he's like doing super pinpoint optic blast, like shoot somebody in the arm, shoot him in their kneecap, then punch them in the face. It's really good. Then the main Friends of Humanity guy uncovers they have a Sentinel arm. And he programs it into the fire, which knocked him kind of down. And Cyclops goes charging, and then he pros him to shoot one of those little rope things that the Sentinels use to shoot up the wrap-up mutants. And they pretty much wraps up Cyclops, and he falls to the ground. Like, take his visor. He's like, no, don't. I surrender. And he has his visor off. Not. Opens his eyes. Next thing you see, the whole building just kind of like blow up. It's like, my boy already showed off looking OP in the first episode, man. He was like coming in as a total badass. So then we got to, they're back at the mansion. Cyclops is kind of grilling Gambit about not coming here to help him, and Rogue as well, saying that they could have used their help. There's the Storm and Bishop could have got hurt. So pretty much showing that the team's not really unified since Xavier's death. We also get Morph's entrance. He comes in kind of looking like Xavier, and they're all taking shots at Cyclops. And I didn't like I guess that's supposed to be the Xavier voice if Xavier shows up in the show. I didn't like the Xavier voice too much. So all giving Cyclops crap. Then we get Pregnant Jean's entrance. She's already nice and prego. And she's trying to tells everyone to calm down and be like good. We got to be role models, and everybody needs to play nice. Then we get Robert DaCosta waking up in a medical bed, very similar to, I guess, the Jubilee scene, very reminiscent of the Jubilee Night of the Sentinel scene, where he wakes up and there's Beast is like humming some Mozart, doing some stuff, and then Beast does his little introduction, and we get the Jubilee introduction, and they're trying to talk to him and stuff like that. And Cyclops and Storm comes in trying to find out about the tech, and he's being like a rich, pompous asshole kind of stuck up kind of stuff. And he's like, "Well, do it." And so they're pretty much like, "Oh, fine, I'll stick around, But, I'm not going to sit here and listen to this boring stuff. So they get a scene where Jubilee's showing them off the danger room and showing how realistic the danger room is. And they have Magneto show up. Tease for later, obviously. We'll get to that. So Magneto shows up and he's like, well, I'm not falling for this computer thing. Next thing you know, he gets knocked to the ground by Wolverine, who does the 2 claws thing right around each neck, and he goes, show the lady some respect. He's like, oh, wow. I was like, turn off the computer already. So what was it? Computer inch program. I'm real. Somewhere along that lines. It's like, so funny. So pretty cool. So you get the Wolverine intro, and he came in pretty badass. Then we get Cyclops and Jean. We get an introduction to Dr. Cooper, who's a comic book character as well. She's like their UN contact that they're working with. So the X-Men are kind of heroes, kind of, in a way. So they're obviously out in the open. They're working with the government to help do things that help people and taking out threats and stuff like that. So very much in the open, and everybody's Cyclops kind of grilling him a little bit because the Sentinel tech's not supposed to exist because all the Friends of Humanity had the little Sentinel blasters cannons on their arm. They had the giant Sentinel arm, obviously. So doing that, and then they have a little touching moment scene with Scott and Jean, and I believe this is where they talk about it. Scott, so Jean says it's not a spot for to have a kid, and they talk about leaving the X-Men to go. It's time maybe for them to leave and go raise their kid. This is very reminiscent, obviously, of the part in the comics when Jean was dead and Madeline Pryor showed up, and Scott. The first team initially left, the second team came in, and then Xavier took off. Similar to what happened, Xavier went into space with Lily Andrew because he was sick, and they're the only ones that could heal him. And Magneto came in to run the team, and that's where Scott decided it was time to leave the X-Men. Him and Madeline went to Alaska to raise their kid and live peacefully. And then Jean was found in the bottom of the Hudson Bay. And that's where she came back out. The Fantastic Four find her, or the Avengers find her, and then Mr. Fantastic unlocks the thing with Jean in it, and they go form X Factor, and then that's where that storyline went. So this is a very obviously to talk about him leaving the team there. That's to raise the kid. That's right from the comic books where it was with Madeline Pryor, but we'll get to that in a little bit. So the rest of the team's out playing basketball, and then there's a little commotion because Jubilee's going off on Wolverine for running Roberto off. So Scott has a big moment. It's like, fine, Wolverine, use your nose to go find him. And then there's a little scene between Scott and Wolverine showing there's always the tension between them two. Wolverine don't like being bossed around by Cyclops, and Jean has to kind of diffuse it. And so he says, Wolverine, go find Robert, take Jubilee. He's like, you know what? Everybody, actually, all of you, go help him. Because none of you have been working since we've never been working. Nobody's been doing anything like a team here. So he sends them all off to do that. Where him and Jean says, hey, the only way we're going to find Trask, who's been missing since the big episode where they were going to take Senator Kennedy's brain out, replace it with a robotic brain. And that was like the big scene where the X-Men went to save Senator Kelly, who hated them, and risked all their lives. And that's where also Magneto kind of had a big hero moment at that moment. He kind of came to their aid as well. So there's always a Trask has been missing since that day. So they go to talk to Henry Geiler, and they do this interrogation scene. And Cyclops is offered he's got 25 years for shooting Charles Xavier, which is kind of, it led to his death, so it's kind of murdering Charles Xavier, and he got 25 years. I mean, come on, man. Law. Man, that's pretty light. That's a light sentence. They go, hey, if you tell us where Trask is, we'll knock it down to 10 years, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, can't believe you gotta feel sick to your stomach having to do this and train. He's refusing to help him. He says he won because taking out Xavier was, nothing's ever going to top that for him. And that's where it opens up the door for Jean, to enter his mind to get the information using Cerebro. So we have a Jean vision, so she kind of gets the idea of a desert, but then the vision starts going weird. This darkness is around, and there's gravestones everywhere, and then there's a giant master mold head. So it definitely shows something of master mold, but does hint about something else with the baby and gravestones. But then, so it ends up being that they found that they're in the Sahara Desert, that Trask is in the Sahara Desert. I always get those two mixed up. Is in the Sahara Desert. Then we get a club scene where they're finding Roberto. This one felt a little more adult. So in a club scene, we see like people dancing, and it shows a couple, two people kiss. We have the member of Rogue wishing, like she said, we kind of get some power dumps here, where I guess people are, for the newer audience, are kind of letting people know what these people can do. So Rogue talks about, if I'm down there and someone touches me, they're going to get a bad hangover and all this and that. And of course, Gambit's like, hey, I wouldn't care if it's worth the risk. Then we see Wolverine and Morph, and then Morph's kind of priding him for information. And he turns himself into Jean, which shows you he can turn into a woman for the people yelling about the presser still. There's Morph turning into a woman. That kind of, I won't go down that road. Because I know it's a touchy subject for some people. Even though it's not a big deal. By the way, nothing about that was mentioned in the episodes at all. Like I predicted. So he's just saying like, and she also tells says what Jean's powers are. And kind of says, you're mad that you got to look at her and she's married to Scott and they have a baby in a perfect world. And it's where Wolverine comes, pretty much announces that, yeah, I know what's going to happen. They're going to leave the team. Jean's leaving. So he's upset about because he kind of, I guess, can tell that that's what he makes sense. Because he's like, the school's not a place to raise a baby. Jean knows that. They're going to leave the team. Then he said some Friends of Humanity guys walk in. They go do that. And then Jubilee finds Roberto and they start doing this little dance. And Jubilee does this little dance shooting off her power. So we get this little dancing scene between the two. And then it gets interrupted by Wolverine with the Friends of Humanity hat. And they also got one of the little Sentinel blaster guns. Saying, hey, see, we told you weren't safe. They were coming here for you again. So come back with us until we get this taken care of. I guess I may have miscut some out of there. So I guess maybe the club scene happened actually before. All right, I was a little out of order. So we get the Sahara scene. So they're all in the Blackbird. At first, I thought this was like a danger. I must have had a feeling this was like a danger room thing. He's like, oh no, this is actually happening already. So they're in the Blackbird flying into the Sahara, and like we got to work together as a team. All of a sudden, the plane Wolverine kind of gets snaps at Cyclops. All of a sudden, the Blackbird gets attacked and ripped open by a Sentinel. And grabs Cyclops, and he starts shooting his optic blasters, cuts his head off, cuts the arm off, and then uses his powers to blow up the arm. But the jet gets destroyed in the process. We get a couple nice, cool little sort of cameos. Morph turns into Archangel to save to help catch somebody to catch them when they were falling. Rogue gets Beast and I guess Gambit, and Cyclops is like, good work, team. See you on the ground. We get another badass Cyclops scene. So he turns, he goes into like the speed fall pose, like going down. Then he starts using his optic blast to shoot the ground, and the slowest descent until he lands. Freaking badass! It was bad. It was so badass. Totally badass. Because to me, my X-Men. That's when we get the scene from the trailer where they all come together. And then there's out in the open a giant master mold with Oliver with Trask there. Like, hey, I knew you were coming. Blah, blah. I was like, that's why I thought it was a dangerous. It's like, would he just be sitting out in the open like this? This is going to be them training, trying to get together on the same page, showing them get back on the same page so they can fight the Sentinels. But no, it turns out it's actually it's the actual battle with Trask and stuff like that. So he raises a bunch of deformed, half beat up Sentinels to fight them, and so we get a really cool battle scene. Beast takes over one, starts pounding them up. We got everybody else kind of doing cool moves, taking them out. And then we get the point where then we get past the first wave, then a giant wave comes up. And Cyclops goes, time to show him the forecast. And I was like, you see this as Omega level threat detective. You see, and then we get another Storm coming in with a badass intro. Comes in, starts to weather up, starts turning sand to glass, and brings in a tornado. And so we have a glass tornado that's just sucking up the Sentinels and ripping them to shreds. It's bad. They definitely did Storm very good in this first episode. She was a complete and utter badass. As well, Cyclops was a badass. So Cyclops and Storm definitely had great moments in this first episode where they were total badasses. But we give the Master Mold comes up to do his attack, so we gotta give Wolverine a moment. So this is where we get the part of the scene where Wolverine comes, he starts those things. Gambit jumps on his back and charges his claws. Then he charges his sphere, throws the sphere at the ground to shoot Wolverine up in the air. Morph then turns into the Blob, and then it falls on the ground so Wolverine can bounce up off of him. And cuts off Master Mold's head. So really, really cool. And like I said, we got a Blob. Now we got the Blob. So they're finding ways to work in, show off other characters that probably aren't obviously going to be in the show, I would imagine. And then the UN and Dr. Cooper show up there to take Trask into custody, and he's like, "Yeah, you'll never be us. We're going to wipe you out, and humanity's going to win. You're trying to force us out. Blah blah blah." And Cyclops and Cooper have this moment. It's like, yeah, no, taking guys like that off the streets is always a good day to show us that we can work together. And she's like, yeah, you're like Charles. He's like, it was a team moment and kind of like that. So everybody's connected now. They're back together as a team. And from there, let's see what we do. Then we get a scene with Sunspot and Jubilee on the roof, where he's pretty much saying that he's free to leave. They take out the bad guy at Friends of Humanity, and the Sentinels have been taken out. Well, I guess the Sentinels have been taken out. The other way actually made him clear, because technically they didn't take out the Friends of Humanity. That's who was after him. But they took out the Sentinels, so they didn't. So he was, hey, they pretty much saying, hey, you're good to go. We don't need, we don't need to protect you anymore. We know those weren't the people after you. So that's where he shows off. He kind of does his little powers on his arm to show off. It finally shows off his mutant power a little bit, and how he doesn't accept it and stuff like that, and leaves her his card and stuff like that, and leaves. I don't know. I assume all the talks was supposed he was going to be a new character in the show, so I don't know if he comes back or not. Then we get back to the basketball court, and Storm throws Cyclops the basketball, says, "You're team leader. You get to pick the teams." And that's when so Cyclops does his move, saying, like, you guys don't show that you can function as a team without me, and they're getting ready to pretty much make their announcement. That's where Wolverine goes, "You're leaving." And everyone's kind of freaking out about them leaving. Then alarms go off, and there's somebody in the mansion. And he's in Xavier's room, private study. They all go in. So that's the scene everyone's seen where they're all in their these outfits. And that's what a lot of people have been making fun of. They're all in tank tops and stuff like that. It's because they were playing basketball. Stop overreacting to shit in the trailer and watch the fucking show. Sorry for the language. Oh my god, look how they got them dressed. They're all dressed stupid. Because they were playing basketball. Boy, you all feel stupid now. They're not going to admit it. All these YouTubers that hate on it aren't going to admit it. They're going to try and double down on it, I'm sure. But that's why they were dressed like that in tank tops and stuff. So Magneto's there, and he's got the last will and testament of Xavier saying, hey, he left everything to me. Everything to me, my X-Men. And that's where that episode ends. So, obviously now we're setting up where Magneto becomes the leader of the team, which also was a storyline from the comic. It was a big storyline in the comic books. So we get like I said, we had the Scott leaving the team to go raise his kid. This time it's with Jean. Last time in the comics it was Madeline. We get Magneto taking over the team, which those two things were kind of connected in the book a little bit because Scott didn't want to work under Magneto. So two big storylines right there. Obviously, the Sentinels and stuff has always been and the Friends of Humanity were huge. More of the animated series. Actually, I don't even remember if the Friends of Humanity were in the comics or whether they even showed up because I don't recall ever reading about that. I'd imagine they got them from their comic somewhere, but I don't ever remember that comic. So great start. So started off great. We had some really cool battles, fight scenes, some cool moments. Cyclops was a badass. Storm was a badass. Everybody else gets a little moment. Obviously, Wolverine gets the big kill shot. So make all the fans happy.